So I know, in the intro I said, this is EMUI10 with Android Q. But if you go into these settings here in System, About Phone, it says EMUI9 and Android version 9 and build number 5. What's that about? I thought this was EMUI10. Well, it is, actually. This is Android Q still. They spoof the settings just so you don't know that this is to try to prevent leaks through benchmarking apps and such. But this is EMUI10. The way, or Android 10, EMUI10, same thing. The way we can check it is to go into this app called DevCheck, and it says Android version 10, API 28, security patch of July 5th, then more build number and release key stuff. None of that matters. What matters here is the Android version, which is Android 10, which means this does have Android Q's features. Well, some of them at least. So the first one, and the main one that comes to mind when we think Android Q, is dark mode. And it does have it. But we've always had dark mode for a while now. Except theirs was over in the battery settings. So instead of having the darker interface option here, it gets moved up to the display settings. Small change, really does nothing. All of their apps still support it. System UI still supports it. Not a big deal. One thing you will notice, though, is the System UI looks almost exactly the same. Just base System UI, I've noticed essentially no changes. It's interesting to see that they kept this design, but not going to complain about it. One other change I've noticed is actually the roundness of everything. So if you come here, back down to battery settings, you can see that's like kind of round now. It's rounded corners. That's kind of a theme throughout the UI. All the pop-ups and everything are now those rounded corners. It's interesting. Besides that, I honestly haven't noticed very many new features. This is, to me, essentially the same as it was before. The one thing, yeah, actually you can see there with that notification, I don't have one, but in the current Android Q build, which I actually have here on my Pixel, when you get a notification, I can just trigger one with a screenshot. When you get a notification, you can swipe either way to dismiss it. It doesn't matter. On EMUI 9, or 10, they still have that older Android Q feature where you can only swipe one way. So you can only swipe like that, but here you can swipe either way. It's an annoyance to me, but I'm betting when they get a newer version of Android Q sources for their internal builds, it'll support both ways. Other than that, I honestly haven't noticed very many changes here. Actually, I'll keep my Pixel out for this. One huge Android Q feature was their gestures. So I can go down here on my Pixel and enable full gestural navigation. And down here on EMUI, we also have gestures. And these work the exact same way. This isn't a surprise, though, because in EMUI 9, it still had the same type of gestures. Swipe up to go, if you're in an app, swipe up. If you want to go to your recent apps, you swipe up and hold. If you want to go back, you swipe over. The difference, though, is actually on Android Q. Some apps have this side swipe, right? Where you can swipe over a panel. I know Instagram has it, Snapchat has it, Google Play Store has it. So on EMUI, you actually have to go up and tap that button. Which to me, it's annoying. It's a big screen. It's a 6.5-inch screen on this P30 Pro. On the Google version of Android Q so far, all you have to do is swipe over. If you do a long swipe, it'll go back, but if you do just a quick one there, it's not an issue. I legitimately have no idea how to trigger the difference. Here we go. So it looks like, nope, you can see it's super finicky on the Pixel. Yeah, it's super finicky. But essentially, it's a double swipe if you want to go back with that side panel. Here, there is no side panel swipe. You actually have to, it always goes back no matter what you do. Otherwise, the gestures are essentially the same, and EMUI has had them for a while now. On the Pixel, you do also get the option for 2-button navigation, which is the pill, my personal preference, then 3-button. On Huawei, you have either 3-key nav or gestures. I'm going to enable 3-key nav because that's my option. You do have the same old settings as before to change it around for your notification. If you're some type of monster who likes the recents button on the right side, you can do that, but it deserves to be on the left. Otherwise, I would say there aren't that many changes. One change I did notice, and I personally like, is in the camera app. You can see here, we've got these red accents now. Red accents everywhere. It's red accents in the camera app, new icons, new sound effects, which are hard to hear, and they might not be new. I'm just never keep my volume on, but it's here now. All the camera modes do work, including the 10 times zoom lens. Let's just point my phone up here at my keyboard. You can see it does get you 10 times zoom. But one thing I did notice, which is interesting and I hope a bug, when you are at 1 time, so let's zoom in on just this little piece of dust here. I'm at 1 time zoom right now. Let's go up to 5, because it does have a 5 times optical zoom. That is still digital zoom. You can see because of the difference, but right when we get up to 10 times, it switches lenses over to the 10 times zoom lens. Before, it would switch over at like 5.1, you could force it, but now it's always going to be main until it gets up to 10. I really do hope this is a bug, but it's something I did notice. The settings are the same, and Master AI is still here. You got all your same modes, HDR, light painting, dual view, which is that dual camera. All of these work, all of these are essentially exactly the same as before. One difference I did notice actually was in the night mode. You have your ISO and shutter speed controls right down here. It's best to keep them on auto because, well, always night mode is pretty good, but those are there as well. Besides that, I have to say I have not noticed very many changes at all in EMUI. Yeah, that's pretty much it, honestly. It still has all of its built-in apps. One thing I actually did notice, another change, you can uninstall a bunch of these now. You can fully uninstall a bunch of Huawei's built-in apps, which you have not been able to do before. Most of these were stuck on your phone, and some of them still are. For example, Notepad here, stuck. Optimizer, stuck. Music, stuck. Video, stuck. Files, stuck. Browser, stuck. But all of these other apps up here, you can uninstall. Really nice. And another thing, launchers. Launchers are very buggy on this build. Again, this is a beta version of EMUI10, but I installed Launcher as my launcher, and it would essentially just keep crashing and resetting back to the default launcher. So I switched back to the default launcher just because I didn't want to have to deal with that. Bugs again, but this is actually an internal test build for EMUI10, so I don't expect it to be perfect. Another thing that's actually relatively hard to see is these lines up here. On your home screen, lock screen, and in certain parts of settings, these lines will appear. I believe this is like Huawei, yeah, right here you can see those lines as well. I believe this is Huawei's just kind of identification system to see if people are leaking their internal builds. Funky Huawei has it, so I was able to install it, and, well, I have it now. Other than that, I know I've said that a couple times now, there aren't that many changes. Again, this is essentially EMUI 9 with those Android Q features. When I was going through, the only big revamp was the permissions. If you go to an app like, let's go Messages, right? Messages needs a lot of permissions. When we go over to permissions, you've got this whole big menu here. If you go to location, you have the all the time, you have all the time and only when in the app or nothing, and then you've got access to all the permissions. Again, that was really the only Q feature I've noticed. Essentially, everything else is the same. It's not doesn't seem like it's